Welcome back to Snoozy Facts, where curiosity meets calm. Tonight, we explore Halloween, not to frighten, but to understand. Why do we carve pumpkins? Why do we dress up? And where did this spooky season really begin? We'll drift through ancient traditions, Celtic festivals, Christian holidays, and modern customs. We'll meet symbols like black cats, ghosts, and glowing lanterns. And we'll discover that Halloween isn't just about candy. It's about memory, mystery, and change. So, settle in. Let your breath slow, and let your thoughts wander through the story of Halloween. Learn something new before you snooze. Let's begin. Part 1. Ancient Roots. Long before Halloween became a night of costumes and candy, it was a moment of transition, a turning point between light and dark, between harvest and winter, between the known and the mysterious. This moment was called Samhain, spelled S-A-M-H-A-I-N, but softly pronounced Samhain. Samhain was celebrated by the ancient Celts more than 2,000 years ago across lands that are now Ireland, Scotland, and parts of Wales. It marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the darker half of the year, a time when days grew shorter and nights stretched longer. The Celts believed that on the night of Samhain, the veil between worlds grew thin, between the world of the living and the world of spirits. It wasn't a night of fear, but of reverence, a time to honor ancestors, to light bonfires, and to guide wandering souls. People left offerings of food at doorsteps and hearths. They wore simple disguises, not to scare, but to blend in with spirits passing through. Fires were lit on hilltops, not just for warmth, but as beacons, to protect, to purify, and to connect communities. These fires were sacred. They were called bonfires because bones of animals were burned in ritual, a way to give thanks and to prepare for the cold months ahead. Samhain was not just a festival. It was a rhythm, a seasonal heartbeat, a reminder that life and death are part of the same cycle. And though the Celts didn't call it Halloween, their traditions, their beliefs, and their quiet reverence would echo through centuries, into Christian holidays, into folklore, and eventually into the Halloween we know today. Part 2. Christian influence. As centuries passed, the ancient festival of Samhain began to blend with new beliefs. By the 7th century, Christianity had spread across much of Europe, and with it came new holidays, new meanings, and new ways to mark the turning of the year. One of these holidays was All Saints' Day, also known as All Hallows Day, a day to honor saints, martyrs, and those who had passed into the light. It was originally celebrated in spring, but in the 8th century, Pope Gregory III moved it to November 1st, perhaps to align with older seasonal traditions, perhaps to gently replace them. The night before, October 31st, became known as All Hallows Eve, which, over time, softened into the word we know today, Halloween. But this new holiday didn't erase the old. Instead, it layered over it, like mist over a field, like candlelight over shadow. People still lit fires, still remembered the dead, still believed that spirits might walk among them. But now, they also rang church bells. They prayed for souls in purgatory, and they baked special treats called soul cakes. Children and the poor would go from house to house, singing songs and offering prayers in exchange for these small, sweet cakes. This practice was called souling, and it may be one of the earliest roots of what we now call trick or treating. In some places, people dressed in costumes to represent saints or to act out morality plays. In others, they wore masks to confuse wandering spirits. The line between sacred and seasonal, between holy and haunted, became beautifully blurred. And so, the Christian calendar and the Celtic spirit wove together, creating a night that was both solemn and playful, both reverent and mysterious. A night to remember the dead, to honor the past, and to prepare for the long, dark winter ahead. Part 3. Modern Halloween. As centuries passed, the quiet reverence of All Hallows Eve began to shift. The bonfires faded. The soul cakes disappeared. And in their place, new customs began to bloom. By the 19th century, Halloween had crossed the ocean, carried by Irish and Scottish immigrants to the United States and Canada. They brought stories of spirits and saints, of Samhain and souling, of masks and mischief. But in this new land, Halloween began to change. It became less about honoring the dead and more about celebrating the night. Less sacred, more social. Children played pranks, neighbors shared treats, and communities gathered under the glow of autumn leaves. By the early 20th century, Halloween had become a fixture, a night of costumes, parties, and playful fear. Costumes grew more elaborate, from simple masks to full characters, witches, ghosts, monsters, and heroes. Pumpkins replaced turnips as the lantern of choice, carved with faces, lit from within, and placed on porches to welcome or ward off. These glowing gourds were called jack-o'-lanterns, named after an old Irish tale of a man named Jack who tricked the devil and wandered the earth with only a carved turnip and a coal to light his way. Trick or treating became the heart of Halloween. Children dressed up, knocked on doors, and received sweets in exchange for smiles and a little harmless mischief. By the 1950s, Halloween was everywhere. In schools, in neighborhoods, in pop culture. Television shows featured spooky specials. Stores sold costumes and candy. and October 31st became a night of joyful fright. But Halloween didn't stop there. It kept evolving, adapting to each generation. Today, Halloween is celebrated in many ways. Some throw parties, some visit haunted houses, some stay home and watch horror movies. In Mexico, there's Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, a beautiful tradition of honoring ancestors with altars, marigolds, and sugar skulls. In Japan, Halloween is a celebration of cosplay, with parades, costumes, and creative expression. In other places, it's a quiet night, a time to reflect, to light candles, and to remember. Halloween is no longer just one thing. It's many things, a patchwork of past and present, of sacred and silly, of mystery and meaning. And through it all, the spirit of the season remains, a gentle reminder that change is natural, that darkness can be playful, and that even the spookiest night can be filled with light. Part 4. Symbols and Superstitions. As Halloween evolved, it gathered symbols, images, creatures, and customs that whispered of mystery and stirred gentle wonder. Some were ancient, some were invented, but all of them carry stories. Let's begin with the black cat. In many cultures, cats were seen as magical, mysterious, able to walk between worlds. In ancient Egypt, cats were sacred, guardians of homes and companions to goddesses. But in medieval Europe, black cats became feared, linked to witches and superstitions. People believed that a black cat crossing your path could bring bad luck, or that witches could take the form of cats to move unseen. Today, black cats are symbols of Halloween, not because they're evil, but because they're elegant, quiet, and full of mystery. Next, let's meet the ghost. Ghosts have appeared in stories for thousands of years, from ancient Rome to Victorian England to modern films. They represent memory, unfinished business, and the idea that something lingers. On Halloween, ghosts remind us of the thin veil between worlds, of ancestors and echoes. They're not always scary. Sometimes they're gentle, curious, or simply present. Now, let's look at the witch. Witches have many faces. Wise women, healers, outcasts, and storytellers. In folklore, they lived in forests, brewed potions, spoke to animals, and knew the rhythms of nature. But during times of fear, witches were hunted, blamed, and misunderstood. Halloween embraces the witch, not as a villain, but as a symbol of power, of mystery, of the unknown. The broomstick, the pointed hat, the cauldron, all come from stories that blend truth and imagination. Let's not forget the bat. Bats are nocturnal. They fly in silence and navigate with sound. In some cultures, they're symbols of rebirth. In others, They're linked to vampires and shadow. But bats are gentle creatures, pollinators, pest controllers, and part of nature's balance. On Halloween, they flutter through decorations, reminding us that the night is alive. Now, we turn to the jack-o'-lantern. Originally carved from turnips in Ireland and Scotland, these lanterns were placed in windows to ward off spirits. The name comes from a tale of Stingy Jack, a man who tricked the devil and was doomed to wander with only a carved vegetable and a glowing coal. When immigrants arrived in America, they found pumpkins, larger, easier to carve, and beautifully orange. Today, jack-o'-lanterns smile, frown, grimace, and glow. They're symbols of creativity, of welcome, and of tradition. Other symbols, like skeletons, remind us of mortality, not to frighten, but to reflect. Spiders weave webs, symbols of patience and connection. Candles offer light in darkness, guiding spirits and soothing minds. Even the colors of Halloween have meaning. Orange for harvest, for pumpkins, for warmth. Black for night, for mystery, for depth. Together, these symbols create a tapestry, a language of the season, whispering stories old and new. They invite us to wonder, to imagine, to remember, and to celebrate not just the spooky, but the symbolic. Halloween is a night of symbols, each one a gentle reminder that mystery is part of life, and that even in darkness there is beauty. And so, as the candles flicker low and the shadows stretch long, we come to the end of our Halloween journey. From ancient bonfires to glowing pumpkins, from whispered prayers to playful costumes, we've wandered through time, through stories, through symbols, and discovered that Halloween is more than tricks and treats. It's a celebration of change, of memory, of mystery. A night when the veil grows thin and imagination runs free. So as you drift off tonight, may your dreams be gentle, your thoughts be curious, and your spirit at ease. And if you've enjoyed this quiet journey, consider subscribing. It helps the channel grow and keeps the stories flowing. Because if you don't, well, let's just say the boogeyman might notice, and he's very curious about people who skip the subscribe button. Sleep tight, and remember, learn something new before you snooze. Good night.